everybody? Tyrone TG3 here. Pokemon Horizons. Episodes 57, 58, 59. Yes, I know I'm late, but I did this on purpose because there's this one doesn't count as an arc, does it? Kinda. It's an arc. It's an arc. Yeah, because there's a transition. It's an arc. And then I wanted the next one to be the Minerva arc or the snow arc, whatever you want to call it. It's the it's the Minerva arc because that's where we see Rhyme. But I will be covering those 3 episodes later. As for these 3 episodes, episode 57 is a Terapagos, I don't know. Episode 58 is the mascot Pokemon is King Gambit. And episode 59 is Dance, Quaxley. Dance the Blue Medali Dance. So, this arc is what I'm going to call the Medali section of the overall arc, which is the second test. The second test involves each of the trainers using 2 Pokemon in order to fight off against their exam teachers, or gym leaders in this case. And so because of that, now Liko, Roy, and Dot have to travel the region in order to meet up with their examineers and fight against them in 2-on-2 battles now instead of 1v1s, which that's cool. It also gives the trainers a chance to use their second Pokemon now, because I'm going to be real, Tinkaton, or no, it's not Tinkaton, Tinkatink, it's not a Tinkaton yet, Tinkatink, Wattrel, well, Kilowattrel, it's a Kilowattrel now, I keep forget that it's evolved. Kilowattrel and Hatchrim haven't fought in any battles yet. They haven't had any like trainer fights yet, if I'm not mistaken. Any real big trainer fights. So it's good to go ahead and see that. So I'm going to be real though. We're starting with episode 57's review. I barely remember episode 57. And that's not because it's a bad episode or anything. And it's also not because it's been a while since I've done a review. I don't remember episode 57 just because I don't. I mean, I can review it. I know what happened. But for a while, I had to look at this episode and go, what happened in this? And then it was the introduction of Ryford, the history teacher from the Naranja Academy. Long story short, she's doing a research on, I believe it was Gimmighoul. She's doing a research, and she also tells the others about Terapagos and its ability to transform into its Terra form, fighting form, battle form, whatever. So Liko learns about that, so that's cool little plot exposition that we've learned about Terapagos. And then after that, we see that Gimmighoul has been hypnotizing Roy in order to collect Gimme Coins. And I love Gimmighoul. I don't know, something about it. I always do the Fairly Odd Parents joke with him. I'm Greg Gimmighoul, owner of the Paldean Gimmidome. I don't know, something about Gimmighoul just makes me laugh. And thank you for locating my lost son, Dale Gimmighoul. But no, it's just no. Gimmighoul's a hilarious Pokemon. Again, it's mostly just exposition, and we see that Freed's in this episode too, which is cool to see because he's a professor. He's obviously teaming up with a fellow researcher, and they're trying to figure things out. So that's always nice, always cool. They head towards those towers that are in Paldea, because those towers usually connect to each other, and they have a history behind them. Once the Gimmighoul thing is over, the plot pretty much shifts to Naranja Academy, where Dean Clavel tells everyone that their next test is to fight against each of the teachers using 2 Pokemon instead of 1. So it's mostly just an exposition / transitional episode. I'm gonna be real, not great. It's not bad. It's just there. It's an episode that exists. History, yay. And I'm gonna probably give it a 5 out of 10. It's average. It's super average. Sadly, it's sort of there. The next episode is the mascot Pokemon is King Gambit. So the King Gambit episode is episode 58, I believe. And I'm gonna be real, it's 58. This episode is it's better. not by much. It's one of those filler episodes where something takes place in a restaurant. If you've seen old Pokemon series, we've seen this before. The Pokemon did something, but they want to have an experience in the restaurant so that we can increase our sales. If we increase our sales, then the Pokemon will be happy. Well, Dot decides to, because they all end up eating food at the restaurant. Once they end up eating the food that they're eating is like this anything bowl where it's literally a bunch of food in one bowl. And they can't really describe how it is because it's overwhelming. It's so much food that there's no way to give it a stable. It's basically a jack of every trade, but a master of none of it. Well, we learned that King Gambit is very aggressive as a mascot, but he makes really good noodles. The problem is Dot thinks of a plan in order to make the anything bowl sell, because Quaxley is dancing, and that attracts a bunch of people to the restaurant. Issue: King Gambit's not really happy because they're not there to see King Gambit anymore for its hospitality. They're there for Quaxley and its dancing. So then Dot comes up with the idea that King Gambit should go ahead and make noodles because King Gambit is really good at the noodles, and that'll allow them to focus on making the noodles, and King Gambit can still be the mascot, and thus the restaurant can make a name for itself. Dot's the one that comes up with this plan. It's really good. They all end up eating there. Onyx ends up fighting due to a weird misunderstanding, but the battle gets canceled because it was mostly a publicity stunt to bring people into the restaurant. Onyx thought it was a legitimate fight, but I don't know. It's good to see that Onyx is on his own sometimes. I love Sango, I really do, but I didn't want it to just be the Onyx and Sango gags all the time. It's good to see Onyx by himself and actually doing some Onyx-based things. We get to get a little bit more of his personality and a little bit more of his character, and I think that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Yeah, overall, Pokemon has had several restaurant episodes in the past. This one's pretty harmless. You seen one, you seen them all. I thought the old married couple's banter was pretty funny. I love just like the Pokemon eating the food, and it's an okay feel good episode. And it's nice that we're having a build up episode before we actually go into the fight against Larry, which is episode 59. That's Dance Quaxley, Dance the Blue Medali Dance. Now, this episode's kind of weird. It's good, but it's kind of weird. Oh, and if I gave the last episode a rating, by the way, I'm sorry, I'd give it a 6. Sadly, it's above average good. It's better than the last episode. Definitely more memorable. But sadly, not by much. It's a restaurant Pokemon episode. Instead, and I hate to say it because realistically, I should be going into all of these reviews with no knowledge of Ash and his journey. But I have that knowledge. And sadly, I can't force my brain to forget Pokemon episode formula. That's going to stay no matter what. Pokemon episode formula is just permanently etched into the framework because Pokemon is a series that's basically 25 years old. So I can't exactly get rid of that frame. But at the same time, I can't, it's unfair to judge it on the merits of a series that already exists. That begs a lot of questions. Is it fair to judge it on that premise? Even though the characters are completely different, but it's still Pokemon, a centralized series that more or less everybody has knowledge of. I guess if you were to know everything about Pokemon but never watch the anime series, and this is your first series to watch, then I guess you could judge it on a different lens. Sadly, I have almost 30 years worth of knowledge of this series, so I'm trapped into the ongoing phases of knowing what happened and applying it to what's happening. Is it fair? Maybe. Kinda. Depending on how you go at it. But I'm judging these critically based on what I'm saying, and I'm also judging them based on someone who has the extinct knowledge of watching Pokemon series before. And even if you took that knowledge away, my basis on how I see anime and storytelling still plays a factor here. Overall, yeah, I gave the episode a 6 out of 10, but I gave it a 6 out of 10 mostly because this formula is used in other Pokemon series, but even on its own, it's a very basic premise, even in anime's today's standards. But we're moving on. Like I said, episode 59 is a bit weird because we don't just straight up get a Larry fight. Before that, before they even head to the gym, there's a dancer who has an Oricorio, the salsa one. And Oricorio battles against Quaxley, but it starts to become more of a dance battle, and because of the dance battle, it attracts a lot of people. Quaxley ends up picking up on the dance formula and thus copies a little bit of that dance in the fight. Since the girl who owns the Oricorio is impressed by Quaxley's dance moves, they go ahead and lead her to where the gym is. So they end up going to the restaurant where Larry usually goes regularly, which also doubles as a gym. And I'd be very pissed if I was customers that were eating in the battle zone because the lady who owns the restaurant flat up tells them to move so that they can go ahead and have the battle. She's not asking meanly, but it'd still be inconvenient while in the middle of your meal, some random kids come to battle unless you gotta pick up your entire plate, your food, and everything that goes with it just because this Pokemon battle is taking place. I guess that's one of the reasons why it's not ideal to have a Pokemon battle in a restaurant, but for aesthetics and theming, this battle's necessary. Anyway, Larry ends up fighting off against Dot and dominates the fight. Like, the Dunsparce is wrecking this thing, and then Staraptor comes out and wrecks. I will say I like that Tinkatink decides to use the breaking swipe, but uses it in a spinning way so that the Dunsparce and Tinkatink look like Beyblades that are fighting. Although, choreography-wise, I hate to say it, I've seen better. Sadly, XY has still spoiled me when it comes to Pokemon battles. But overall, Staraptor dominates majority of the fight, and because Staraptor dominates majority of the fight, Larry does end up switching the Dunsparce out, so the Dunsparce didn't get knocked out, like it didn't lose. So Dot ends up using Quaxley, and Quaxley winds up losing too until it picks up on Oricorio's dance moves from earlier in the episode. So it's good to see that that wasn't a complete throwaway to pad some time so that the battle can end right when the episode ends. So when Quaxley winds up changing up its style, it's able to pretty much dominate the fight for a moment before Staraptor comes in and reminds everybody why Larry is both the gym leader and an Elite Four member. Larry wins the fight, but Dot does pass. And I gotta say, I get it. And honestly, I'm glad Pokemon Horizons is taking a realistic approach to teaching these kids rather than the kids going the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX route and dominating every professional teacher, gym leader, and Elite Four member in their wake for the sake of get your game on, I guess. I don't know. So I'm glad that they're losing for the sake of learning. They are students. Teachers are teachers for a reason. They're there to teach, not to get their butts kicked and then cause hilarious jokes and call them Slifer slackers. So I'm glad there. But it also does lead to each of the trainers, Dot, Roy, and Liko, losing in battles and having to deal with defeat a lot. But again, I'll let it pass because, again, they're at a school. Since they're at a school, them losing doesn't become as frustrating because they're legitimately learning lessons. But Dot doesn't seem to think so as she gets frustrated in that fight, but later on she does get a little bit better. I like at the ending when they all end up eating food afterwards and Larry gets charged with the bill. First of all, Pokemon doesn't really deal with transactions a lot. In fact, Horizons is the most we've seen a Pokemon anime series deal with paying money for things. And it's so funny because when Larry gets hit with the bill, he's like, I suppose I have to pay because I'm an adult. Whatever. Like, he gets very upset by it, but it's like an adult, like, well, kids will be kids. Like he's come to terms with the fact that he knows that since he is an adult, he'll pay for these kids for the sake of good morale. but he knows it'll hurt him too because he's just a businessman. Like I don't know. The Larry's realism makes him way more noticeable, which is literally the opposite of what Larry wants. Even at the beginning, the Oracorio dancer trainer says that Larry's well known. Well, his point is to not be well known. He doesn't want that. But he's literally a gym leader and Elite Four member and one of the most realistic characters Pokemon has ever written. So it's this weird taste of irony that comes with all of that. So Dot ends up passing the test. She was a bit frustrated that she lost, but she did pass, and Quaxley ends up evolving into Quaxwell, by the way. Yeah, I didn't forget that plot point. It just didn't become super relevant until right now. Because we're looking at you, Fuecoco. What's going on, buddy? So, based on the episodes that we'll be seeing later on, my brain kind of knows why Fuecoco's not evolving. And I'll save my thoughts for that when we review those episodes. And those episodes are as follows. Episode 60 is Sing Snow for the First Time, Fuecoco. Episode 61 is Resound My Soul, Challenging Rhyme. And then episode 62 is Me and Fuecoco's Song. So, with all that being said, if I had to give a rating for the Larry and Dot battle or the episode 59, I'm definitely going to go ahead and give that episode an 8. It's good. It does its job. It's the battle. It ends well, and Larry's a really great character. I think my only downside here is that I wish the battle was choreographed a little bit better. But, it's a decent battle, so I can't give it too much crap. So, with that being said, y'all, I'll see y'all then, everybody. Tyrone TG3